Welcome in, Frostburg State fans, to our winter sports recap. That's right, all of our winter sports have finally wrapped up their seasons, and a lot of successes and things to talk about here, joined by Morgan Cuthbertson, as always. And Morgan, will start off with men's swimming, who made it back-to-back conference championships, finished second place at the combined GMAC MEC championships, a strong season for them, undefeated in conference play, and just another title to add to them, where head coach Matt Brinton has made them basically the talk of the conference.
Absolutely, and Logan, happy to be here as always. Got, a new kind of interesting winner this far, just kind of hit my 1 year mark here, so happy to be here. Thank you for having me again as always. But, Matt Brinton does such a great job with both swimming programs, men and women's. Talk about men's first. I know hitting their second straight MEC championship, so congrats to them. Also coming in second overall in the MEC and GMAC championships, big plus there. But Matt Brinton has such good, strong athletic swimmers on both sides of the men's and women's. Shout out to Nate Knapp and Julian Naharo Sadar, two fantastic swimmers that received multiple first-team All-MEC honors. Then I believe we just counted up 9 other male athlete swimmers that received All-MEC conference honors as well. So hats off to them and congrats to them.
Yeah, and coming off of last year where they won their first ever conference championship to now, got to say they're kind of the favorites in the conference going forward for the next couple of years, as well as the women's team, who have been a powerhouse now for the last few years, making it 3 in a row this year, and wasn't really even close between the other MEC schools, coming in third place with two very strong teams at the top between Hillsdale and Findlay on the women's side from the GMAC, but a lot of talented swimmers there as well, a lot of records that we've seen broken this year, and more that we just are expecting at this point to continue to add and break and grow the program.
Sure, and there's also enough you can't say about the women's team. Again, another shout out to Matt Brinton doing a fantastic job. Women, such, strong athletic swimmers in that category as well. The women's team coming off their third straight MEC title, so congrats to them as well. Coming in third, then I believe, in the overall thing in the MEC and GMAC championships. Shout out to Liz Perry, Natasha Paciello, Gabriella Betancourt, Kendall Hooper, Lydia Nebbiolo, all receiving individual first-team All-MEC honors as well. And then with those 5 plus, alongside of them, 5 relay teams receiving also first-team All-MEC honors as well. So fantastic season, I think, for both the men's and women's swimming programs here.
And Coach Brinton will graduate a number of seniors from both teams, and it's a little bit of a contrast from last year, where I believe there were only 3 or 4 total swimmers that ended up leaving the program. But now, you've got a lot that you're going to have to replace, but it's such a young team that he's going to bring back and really set up for the future for this program. We'll go from the pool to the court then, and we will start with men's basketball and a tough season for first-year head coach Zach Thompson and his program. And, it's just a rebuilding year for the most part. I mean, there were only 5 players that had played minutes last year that came back for this team. Was a lot to replace. Had, I believe, 15 newcomers on the team in total. Some of them redshirted. Some of them got meaningful playing time. Not the season that he would have wanted, but he understands the challenges that came with this program entering it and just trying to turn it around and finally get this team competitive, which they started with getting to the MEC tournament, which is a step.
Exactly, and like you said, Logan, definitely a new face to men's basketball here for Frostburg State. First season under head coach Zach Thompson, like you said, brought in lots and lots of new players, a lot of transfers, some freshmen, so got to see how they mixed in with the returners, of course. Kobe Baptiste coming in as a transfer junior, a solid, strong player for the Bobcats all season long. I believe averaged 8.5 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game. And then Justin Roseme coming back this season. Coming off an injury last year. I'm happy to see him get out there and put up good numbers in, I think, just under 10 points per game, under 3 rebounds per game. So hats off to both of those players. And like you said, definitely not the season maybe head coach Zach Thompson would have wanted, but they ended kind of on a high note, kind of with looking forward to next season. Like you said, they did enter their first ever MEC tournament. So kind of look at that, build on that, and see what happens next year.
Yeah, and he's bringing in a crop of players that I think he likes, and it's something for a head coach that, he got hired pretty late in the cycle last year, came in, I think, March or April, and you're not really getting all of your guys in necessarily, and you're trying to meld with what you have last year, but he's now got his first full recruiting class that he's going to bring in, try to teach his system and get those players ready. One that we've seen this year on the women's side with Jenna Eckelberry, the MEC Coach of the Year, took over a program that had won 5 games 2 years ago, now 18 games that they won, a top 3 seed in the conference, had a shot at the number 1 seed, just came up short at Fairmont in that last game, and then, got a favorable matchup in the MEC tournament, didn't have their best game against Concord, but the growth of the program in just 2 years, I mean, and you came in last year and you saw the status of that program and the improvement that have been made. I mean, it's just incredible what she has done with that program, and the players that have bought in as well have to give credit to them.
Sure, and there's not, like you said, not enough good things you can say about the entirety of women's basketball. Head coach Shanna Eckleberry, hats off to her, very well-deserving MEC Coach of the Year. And like you said, she, in her second season here at Frostburg State, she doubled their wins from last season. Got their most wins with an 18-11 record, most wins in Division 2 so far. But she brought in a fantastic freshman class, worked 3 freshmen into the starting lineup kind of right away this season to lead them to an 18-11 record overall, 14-6 record in the MEC. Again, coached just as a sophomore, Emily Weekly, now MEC Player of the Year, received first-team All-MEC honors. Jenna Muha, freshman coming in, received All-MEC honorable mention. Congrats to her. And then you look at the graduating class. You know, head coach Shanna Eckleberry had the opportunity to coach Mackenzie Freeze, Sierra Thompson, Maggie Sharp. Maggie Sharp having an outstanding career here, ending it on a fantastic note, receiving second-team All-MEC honors. Her and Weekly both surpassed 1,000 career points this year, setting the single game and single season records for three-pointers made. So congrats to her, and a fantastic, such like a sentimental kind of happy moment for Frostburg State women's basketball this season, and definitely really excited for next season as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the youth on this team, and your best player is a sophomore only, and she's going to come back as a junior next year. You had 5 freshmen that played in at least 50% of the games, and you mentioned 3 or 4 of them were right in the starting lineup at the end of the year. And, you know, kind of looked at the rocky start to the year in a way, certainly an improvement, but you go through the conference season at one point where it's 9-1 in a stretch in the conference, and that's when Coach Eckleberry found her best lineup and putting him out there. And, you know, it was for the first time since you and I have been here that we're expecting to beat teams now. And, you know, when we don't show up and perform, it's a disappointment where that almost used to be the regular. So, again, hats off to her. Certainly excited for next year where they could be conference favorites going into it. We will then go from the court onto the mats as we just cycle through all of the different forms of court that you can play on with our winter sports, and 2 new programs for Frostburg State. One that's come back after a long layoff, and the men's wrestling team, head coach Josh Hutchins, and what a job he's done as a first-year head coach, getting them to a winning record, taking a couple of athletes into the national tournament, finishing with a winning MEC record as well, where there's 2 powerhouses nationally in Glenville State and West Liberty, to lead this team in their first year and make them immediately competitive.
Sure, and like you said, you know, 2 new programs here joining Frostburg State. Wrestling definitely was fun to watch. I mean, I think we both had kind of seen, you know, men's wrestling before, them also being a program here earlier on in Frostburg State years, and then a whole new program in women's wrestling, which I know we'll get to later. But men's wrestling head coach Josh Hutchins brought in fantastic group of guys, going for a 14-13 overall record, 4-2 in the conference, like you said, kind of making their mark in MEC already. And then I think they competed in like 27 dual matches, one open invite where they, I believe, placed first, and then going on into the regional championship, and then taking Thierno Diallo and Gavin Bage into the national championship. Shout out to them, doing fantastic this year. I know Thierno Diallo placed second in the MEC championship. Shout out to freshmen Gage Halbrun, Liam DeBaugh, Mason Buckler. They placed third in the MEC championships. And then back to what I was saying in the regional and nationals. Congrats to them, Thierno and Gavin Bage. I know Diallo placed 8th in the national championship, so congrats to him, earning All-American honors. So definitely a highlight program to watch out for sure.
Yeah, and like we mentioned with youth, I mean, all but about, I think, 5 or 6 of the athletes are freshmen on that team, so they're only going to get better, you have to imagine, with A, the experience, and B, the competition level that you're going to bring in for future seasons. And big congrats to Coach Hutchins, who is not going to be happy enough necessarily with that start, but certainly one that we're expecting to get better and better. And with another first-year head coach, we'll get to the women's side then. And speaking of a new program, it's new to not just, you know, wrestling fans in general, but new to basically the country, where there's very few women's wrestling teams that are established, competitive right away. And she made this team, you know, to put a couple of athletes into the national tournament, and, you know, a fantastic job with her coming in from her first year and her assistant coach Caitlin as well. Basically, the two of them running the program on their own. Got to see the Bobcat Open. You mentioned us getting to watch wrestling, stats from wrestling, and kind of be the scorekeepers. But a very interesting and huge tournament. I mean, about 160 athletes that came here. That's not including the parents and the coaches and all that. But very exciting and just a sport that we're getting used to, but certainly one that's on the rise.
Yeah, women's wrestling, it was fun to watch, fun to learn, and it was kind of really cool and kind of happy to see, people come out because they're interested in it. But hats off to head coach Bree Neal bringing in, a couple girls that did their job. Definitely fought some injuries, I'd say, but three, top wrestlers, Aurora Walters, Jada Fowler, and Lily Castilla, all going to the regional championships. Walters placing 8th. Fowler placing 4th and Castilla placing 3rd, allowing Castilla and Fowler both to go into the national championships. I think they both fell in their matches there, but definitely a fantastic start. And like you talked about, the Bobcat Open, that was amazing. We definitely learned a lot, worked a lot, as we like to do, stat out like you said. But I think, like you mentioned, over 150, 60 competitors coming in. I think it kind of put women's wrestling for us and just women's wrestling in general on the map.
And it's something that potentially we'll see here at Frostburg for, a tournament to host every single year and, like you said, put us on the map. We mentioned with both wrestling programs that this region is kind of a need, for that. I mean, Maryland is not really known for wrestling. Pennsylvania kind of the kings of that sport. But in this area, we definitely could make a name for ourselves, get some athletes that might not be seen by other schools and come here and learn about it and get to enjoy the program. And even the wrestlers for the women's team that didn't get to compete, that got hurt throughout the year, they were always there supporting their teammates and willing to support them throughout their matches. So it was really nice to see. We'll finally get into our fourth different mode of competition, and we'll get to our indoor track teams. We'll start with the men's side. Second place at the MEC Indoor Championships, and that's their highest ever finish. A couple of program records set and a lot of wins at the championships as well, where it's kind of been dominated by Charleston and West Liberty and Wheeling in the recent years, but we've kind of stamped our foot in there and now surpassed at least West Liberty to get in there and maybe challenging Charleston here coming up in the next couple of years.
Definitely, I think so. And like you said, men's track and field placing 2nd in the MEC Indoor Championships, which I believe their highest finish ever. So congrats to them. Marquise Burks, an animal, coming in, taking and winning the heptathlon and the MEC Indoor Championships. I think setting a new record in wins in that category. A freshman, Kayvon Turner, coming in, taking 1st in the 200 meters, already setting new program records, taking the program to new heights. Then you can't talk enough about Tom McCoy, just shatters his own records over and over again in pole vault, took 1st in the pole vault in MEC Indoor Championships. Congrats to him. And then other freshman, Nate Shields, taking 1st in the long jump. So definitely, I think, a fun, exciting outdoor track season coming up for head coach Shane Brookshire.
Yeah, one of the funny stories from the championships that I talked to the assistant coaches as well. Ballard Suter, who's the multis and jumps coach, he came over to me and we were talking, and he said when Nate won the MEC, he said, "Oh, that wasn't even a good jump." He won a conference championship with it. So, big props to them. Going into the outdoor season, a lot of what you can see in the indoor will translate to the outdoor season, just with faster times and more competitiveness there. On the women's side, then, a 4th place finish, tying their best ever, was actually the most points that they've ever scored at the championships. And it's just growth where we talked in cross country season back in the fall that a couple years ago, Coach Brookshire didn't have a team to compete at those championships, and now he's building it. You see a lot of athletes coming in that have stayed in the program, that are setting new records and becoming names that the MEC recognizes now.
Sure, like you said, a 4th place finish for women's track and field in the indoor championships. Congrats to them, and scoring their highest ever totals. Like you said, I think head coach Shane Brookshire is taking both programs to new heights. You look at Valerie Boards for women's track and field, placing 1st in the 200 meters and 60 meters, also setting new records there. You look at Jasmine Scott and Isabella Mastria, believe placing 1st and 2nd in the 400 meters. And then you look at the field events, also success there. Eva Morrison taking 3rd in the pole vault, and Addie Cottrell 5th in the shot put. So, I think both programs are very well rounded and can very much succeed in the outdoor season coming up.
So with track then closing out their indoor season, we're now going, this upcoming weekend, they're going to compete in their first outdoor meet of the year at the Stan Romanowski Open at West Virginia University. And we've got a couple of events here at Frostburg State that we're excited about as well.
For sure, I know we have the Bob Lewis Classic, I think in the beginning of April. Second time, I believe, hosting that here. And then we're going to welcome the MEC Outdoor Championships here again this season, which I know we spent a lot of time here last year. So come out to the 2 home meets we have, and we'll see you guys there.
And for that Bob Lewis Classic will be the first time that we're hosting it with the track dedication to Coach Lewis and his assistant coach Charlie, who for a number of years had led the program. So it'll be nice for them to see, all these teams come in and see the nice little mural we have out there with the stone marbling and all of that to come into the track that was officially named for them. Well, Morgan, thank you as always for joining me. The winter certainly always feels like a long endeavor, but I think at this point every one of our seasons feels long, but we always enjoy it. It's why we do the job. Excited to see all of our team's success and picking them up from the failures, should they happen, but just excited to see all these teams compete.
For sure. I know we kind of already wrapped up winter. Had to wait till, our men's and women's wrestling program is finished. So, again, a good congrats to them and a great first season for them. And we're on to spring sports now, which I think we're very much in the gear of that. So, looking forward to it all.
Well, be sure to stay tuned for all of our Frostburg State updates here on the Bobcat Sports Network and all of our social media accounts as well. We're always trying to do new things, but as always, go Bobcats.